Welcome to another lecture. Today, let us discuss the fascinating journey of ZZ Top, an American band whose path from Texas barrooms to diamond-certified MTV-era ubiquity is, in a word, instructive. I'm Alexei, delighted to guide you through this exploration.
Hello, I'm Priyanka. Thank you for listening with us today.
To frame our discussion, we should begin with a clear definition. ZZ Top is an American rock band formed in Houston in 1969, initially out of the momentum of Billy Gibbons' prior group, the Moving Sidewalks. The core and classic lineup, Billy Gibbons on vocals and guitar, Dusty Hill on bass and vocals, and Frank Beard on drums, coalesced by early 1970, when Hill joined Beard and Gibbons. Notably, all three were just 20 years old at that time. Their music fused Texas blues and barroom boogie with wry humor and a meticulously cultivated visual identity. Over 5 decades, that triad became one of rock's most stable ensembles, and crucially, a masterclass in brand coherence. Stylistically, we observe a foundation in blues rock and hard rock, often categorized also as boogie rock and southern rock. It is important to understand that while the 1970s output leans on Gibbons' blues phrasing and the propulsive pocket of Hill and Beard, the 1980s introduce a methodological shift. Synthesizers and drum machines become central tools, especially from El Loco in 1981 through the global breakthrough of Eliminator in 1983 and the follow-up Afterburner in 1985. For listeners newer to the vocabulary, a synthesizer is an electronic instrument generating a broad range of timbres. A drum machine provides precisely timed programmable percussion. And, for cultural context, MTV, music television, was the channel that, beginning in the early 1980s, transformed music videos from promotional accents into decisive engines of pop visibility.
So, why should we care about this band in particular? Is it mostly nostalgia, or is there something that changes how we think about popular music itself?
In this context, the stakes are both historical and methodological. First, ZZ Top illustrates how a roots-based act, steeped in Texas blues, can adapt to a changing technological and media landscape without erasing its identity. Eliminator is the canonical case. Diamond certified in the United States, over 10 million copies sold, and driven by a suite of videos, Gimme All Your Lovin', Sharp-Dressed Man, and Legs, that not only received heavy MTV rotation, but codified a visual lexicon of synchronized moves, hot rod cameos, and deadpan humor. Second, their pivot normalizes the idea that electronic instrumentation and production need not negate authenticity. Instead, the electronics functioned as an exoskeleton around a blues chassis, broadening audience reach while sustaining core musical signatures. Let's start with the history. In 1969, after Gibbons' Moving Sidewalks released Flash and bandmates were drafted, he recruited Lanier Gregg and others for early iterations of what became ZZ Top. By early 1970, Dusty Hill and Frank Beard, both connected through the Texas band American Blues, joined Gibbons. Their first record deal came via London Records. ZZ Top's first album arrived in 1971 with blues grit and double entendres. Rio Grande Mud followed in 1972, yielding their first charting single, Francine, though it is worth noting authorship crediting for that track has been a long-standing point of contention for co-writers outside the band. The decisive commercial breakthrough was Tres Hombres in 1973 with La Grange, its boogie groove referencing the Chicken Ranch brothel, propelling them into national prominence. By early 1974, Tres Hombres reached number 8 on the Billboard 200. Fandango, in 1975, blended live and studio sides and produced Tush, another durable radio staple. The mid-1970s saw the ambitious worldwide Texas tour of 1976-77, about 100 shows over 18 months, cementing their arena credentials. Tejas closed their London Records era in late 1976. Then came a strategic pause in 1978 to address health and personal recalibration. Frank Beard sought treatment. The others dispersed, with Dusty Hill famously working for a period at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, simply to feel normal. This intermission is not mere trivia. It precedes a wholesale renewal, a new deal with Warner Brothers, a refreshed image with the now iconic chest-length beards for Gibbons and Hill. Frank Beard, of course, remained the beardless Beard, a lesson in nominative irony. They returned with Degüello in late 1979. Degüello went platinum and established momentum into the 1980s. There is an oft-cited inflection point in April 1980. The band shared a BBC studio with orchestral maneuvers in the dark, exposing them firsthand to a minimal electronic stage language. El Loco in 1981 made the electronics explicit. Then Eliminator in March 1983 codified the synthesis, sequenced pulse, programmed rhythms, and blues licks rendered with aerodynamic efficiency. MTV amplified the effect. Videos for Sharp-Dressed Man and Legs received awards for direction and group performance, while the Eliminator car, chrome and neon sets, and synchronized low-energy, high-impact moves became recurring icons. Afterburner in 1985 extended the formula, and the 1986 tour became that year's highest attended and highest grossing, a rare feat for a trio rooted in the blues. It is worth noting that across their career, ZZ Top sold an estimated 50 million records, spanning 15 studio albums. In 2018, Guinness recognized them for lineup stability, and in 2004, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, with Keith Richards delivering the induction speech.
That's like a lot of ground covered. Before we continue, could you share, maybe briefly, why this band matters to you personally?
Certainly. Years ago, I attended a ZZ Top concert in Europe. The exact venue matters less than the sensation of the groove. What struck me was the precision. The shuffle felt like a metronome wearing cowboy boots. No wasted gesture, no superfluous note, and yet an undeniable warmth. It sharpened my appreciation for how economy and arrangement can read as power rather than austerity. That observation leads us to three large questions that illuminate their trajectory and, by extension, the wider mechanics of popular music in the late 20th century.
Professor, what influenced ZZ Top's pivot to electronic instrumentation in the early 80s? Was it just trend chasing or something more intentional?
Let's begin with the foundations. The pivot reflects several overlapping vectors. First, exposure to OMD at the BBC in 1980 demonstrated a template for minimal choreography and electronic textures that could travel well on television. Second, the airwaves themselves were changing. Club-ready tempos, synthesized hooks, and drum machines made records competitive in a radio and MTV environment where precision and punch translated into repeated spins. Third, behind-the-scenes collaborators mattered. Lyndon Hudson, working closely with Billy Gibbons in pre-production around the Eliminator period, helped lock in faster tempos, programmed rhythms, and a sequence sensibility that gave the songs aerodynamic lift. Producer and engineer Terry Manning then shepherded the sessions in Memphis, emphasizing a consistent sonic sheen. Contemporary accounts indicate that programmed or studio-performed parts replace portions of the rhythm section in service of that consistency. To be precise, the credited details are not granular in the liner notes, and the full extent of substitutions remains a matter of debate among researchers. However, the macro-level outcome is unambiguous. A modern, tightly synchronized groove that fit the early 1980s pop rock climate.
And MTV specifically. How did video exposure translate into that cultural visibility? Was it mostly the car and the beards?
Arguably, yes, but also no. The beards, sunglasses, and hats formed one axis of instant recognizability. The Eliminator hot rod and recurring characters formed another, and the minimalist synchronized movements, hips, guitars, shuffles, offered a visual rhythm that read crisply on camera. MTV privileged such coherence. In simpler terms, the band turned songs into serialized mini-films. The viewer, even without full attention to the music, could recognize the brand within seconds. Awards followed. Legs and Sharp-Dressed Man both earned VMA recognition, and video anthologies later went multi-platinum. That loop, video recognition increasing spins, which increased sales, which funded more high-concept videos, was remarkably efficient.
Second question. What if the band hadn't taken that 1978 hiatus? Does the electronic evolution still happen? Or do we get more of the 70s boogie and less of the 80s synthesis?
Counterfactuals are inherently speculative, but we can bound the possibilities. Without the hiatus, for health, perspective, and frankly exhaustion management, the probability of a deep reset diminishes. The beards as breakthrough visual signifiers, the label shift to Warner Brothers, and the appetite to rethink stagecraft all coalesced in the wake of that pause. It's crucial to understand that pausing allowed them to reassess not only sound, but presentation. By the time they returned with Diguello in 1979 and then El Loco in 1981, they were primed to experiment rather than merely iterate.
So commercially, without that break, do they still reach the Eliminator level?
Less likely. The diamond outcome is a confluence event. MTV's ascendancy, savvy video narratives, electronic gloss matched to blues hooks, and an image instantly memeable before memes had a name. The hiatus functioned as an off-ramp from the late 70s treadmill and an on-ramp to early 80s media logic. In other words, the pause was not an absence, it was R&D. And the returns, Eliminator in 1983, Afterburner in 1985, the record-setting tour of 1986, suggest that the strategic reset amplified their commercial ceiling rather than delaying inevitable success.
Third question. Present day. After Dusty Hill passed away in 2021 and Frank Beard in 2026, the band continued performing. What challenges do they face in maintaining their legacy now?
We can infer several. First, authenticity management. The group's identity is inseparable from the classic trio chemistry. However, per Hill's and later Beard's wishes, continuity was the directive. Elwood Francis, a longtime tech, assumed bass duties in 2021. Drummer Michael Monaghan later stabilized the kit after Beard's passing, following interim substitutions. The task is to sustain repertoire fidelity, the pocket, the tone, the humor, while acknowledging irreplaceable personalities. Second, audience expectation. Many fans attend to hear LaGrange, Tush, Gimme All Your Lovin', Sharp-Dressed Man, and Legs played with authority. The band's recent Elevation tours and co-headlining runs with Lynyrd Skynyrd demonstrate that demand persists. Third, narrative stewardship. The catalog encompasses not just songs, but also contested histories, crediting disputes around Francine, legal resolution for Lyndon Hudson's copyright to Thug in 1986, and debates over programmed versus live parts on Eliminator. A mature legacy must face these with transparency, which in turn can deepen rather than dilute respect.
How have fans responded to the continuation? Is there evidence, one way or the other?
Anecdotally, we see robust attendance and multi-generational audiences. Co-headlining in 2023 and 2024, and the elevation runs through 2025, indicate a functioning enterprise. Yet comprehensive reception studies, systematic surveys, sentiment analyses across markets, longitudinal ticketing data would be needed to make authoritative claims. In this area, further research is not euphemism, it is simply good practice. To summarize, ZZ Top is a pioneering American rock band formed in Houston in 1969, whose synthesis of Texas blues, humor, and later electronic production made them both radio fixtures and video icons. We examined 3 questions. First, why the electronic pivot? Because of a convergence, exposure to British synth-pop minimalism, a changing media market, and crucial behind-the-scenes programming and production choices that locked in kinetic tempos for MTV. Second, what if there had been no 1978 hiatus? The evidence suggests their 80s reinvention would have been less likely, and correspondingly, their diamond-scale success less probable. Third, how to sustain legacy post-2021 and 2026. By honoring repertoire and feel with trusted replacements, communicating candidly about history, and meeting audiences where the songs still live. For further study, consider tracing MTV's influence on other rock acts that navigated similar pivots. Aerosmith, for instance, or peers who integrated visual branding into career second acts. Thank you for listening. As ever, keep your ears open and your hypotheses provisional.
Thank you, Professor, and thanks everyone for joining us today.